So welcome to another Bart and Paul show. And this week we're going to carry on with the universe card. We got halfway through the universe card in the previous video. And we've got a few more things to talk about this evening as well. One is we're going to talk about Bathsheba Ash's new book, The Hermeneutics of Aleister Crowley. And, dun-da-da, I've got some books. My publisher sent me some copies of the books. So if you're interested, I can get them signed and dedicated for you. So send me a comment privately in YouTube, or you can go to our Facebook groups, which are called Bart.
The Book of Thoth Tarot Study Group. That's yours.
That's mine.
Yes. And well, my group is just Thoth Tarot. Well, my group. The group, I mean.
Short and sweet. We'd love to see you there. So this week,
for a Christmas present,
it's a Christmas present to yourself.
Dedicated, you know, and you can have it dedicated to the person you're giving it to.
Yes, yes, I've done that. I've done that. You know, so you can be creative as you like on that one. It's interesting because people sort of send me with sort of cryptic messages. So I sort of have to put on the frontispiece for people. And Bathsheba Ash. Who is Bathsheba Ash? She's a lady
She's a lovely lady
in New York or somewhere like that. I think she's originally English as well, from up north in England.
Scottish, eh?
Huh?
Scottish, I believe.
Scottish. Okay.
Yeah, she's recorded this YouTube film. She's got this lovely, juicy Scottish accent. I wonder if in America people have problems understanding that.
Bathsheba Ash, she's a genius at gematria. Now, I know gematria pretty well, but she takes it onto a whole new level, and she's been analysing Aleister Crowley's writings, and she also knows about the real Jewish Kabbalah. And we did a couple of videos, didn't we, Bart, about the Hecalot, or the seven palaces.
Yes.
And basically, she has this idea that the story is that Aleister Crowley was dictated to by Ahaz in the Great Pyramid with his wife Rose. Long story short, but her view is that Crowley actually wrote the whole of the Book of the Law himself, using lots of gematria, puns, and there's English Kabbalah, which means that you have number values for the English letters, as well as Hebrew Kabbalah, and there are several number systems that are involved in all of this. Don't ask us to explain, because we're not sure ourselves, but it is really good. And Bart, you have a story to tell about this new book, don't you?
It was shortly before she published her latest Hermeneutics of Aleister Crowley, where she asked if there were any requests, if anybody wanted to know anything, any hidden messages in any text of Aleister Crowley. So I couldn't help thinking about the characters of the trumps as they appear in use. These are very mysterious texts, I find, and I'm sure there is a lot more to them than meets the eye. So I kindly asked her to have a look at it, and she did.
These ones here. Yes. So the final half, the first half of the book, she kind of goes through her analysis. Hermeneutics is the study and methodology of interpretation, especially biblical texts, wisdom, literature, and philosophical texts. Hermeneutics is more than interpretive principles or method used when immediate comprehension fails, and includes the art of understanding and communication. Thank you, Wikipedia, for that.
Looking for hidden messages.
Hidden messages, yes. So if you know cryptic crosswords, which are quite hard to solve, but basically the whole of the Book of the Law is a cryptic crossword, if you like, with lots of levels of meaning. And Crowley constructed this whole system. So it's not a religious. This is not a religious text in that sense. It's not dictated by some spirit somewhere, everything else, and they created a religion, you know, the Thelema and all the rest of it. This is Crowley writing and analysing through analysis of gematria and using particular terms in there, which Bathsheba Ash has analysed. And it's very, very deep. She's written a number of books as well, which we think are great, particularly on the Seven Palaces or the Hecalot.
Let's see what we do.
Yes, Bart's got some of the books. Oh, look.
I have these two.
Oh, yeah. I've got them on Kindle. So
I've got them on paper.
So the thing is, so she wrote this book, and the last third is all about the verses that appear in the back of the Book of Thoth, and that each verse appears above the meanings of the card. So she's done this brilliant analysis. So and this is a PDF, and you can download it from her website. We'll put the details below in the text for you. And you can download it for free. And if you want to give a contribution, I'm sure she'd be very pleased to receive it as well. So we've got a personal angle on this book anyway. So download it and tell us what you think.
Well, in a nutshell, correct me if I'm wrong. You have the classic gematria, which everyone knows, who's a little bit into Crowley and all that mysticism and all. Okay, where the letters of the Hebrew alphabet have a certain numerological value and they add up to a certain number, which means something.
Yes.
So Bathsheba Ash discovered a more ancient form of gematria, which changes the numerical values of certain letters, which changes the numerical values of certain words.
Yes.
So which actually, if properly done, reveals a whole new layer of hidden messages in a text.
She even changes the order of the alphabet. So you start with Bet and not Aleph, and you have Shin, which is number 3, and Tau in there as number 4 rather than 300 and 400. We're getting to a territory where we struggle with. But it's opening up a whole new area of research and understanding into the Aleister Crowley's Book of Thoth, which is our main subject. We do have another book news as well. You know, I have my books. If you have the copies of them, it's very unusual for me to get copies.
What are they called again? The Tarot and the Magus and
Beyond the Celtic Cross. That was with Kath Chapman, and also the Tarot and the Magus.
The first part of his great masterpiece.
Which one?
The Tarot and the Magus is part 1.
That's part 1. Yes. This one's
of your great masterpiece.
Yeah. This one here is Beyond the Celtic Cross. I wrote with Catherine Chapman, and she had a question about a tarot reading that she'd done, and she had it in the form of the Celtic Cross, you know, A. Waite's version, which I'm not very good at. So I thought it'd be an interesting exercise to convert that reading into a sequence of cards, which is how we read the cards in the opening of the key spread. Because basically, if you think about it, when you deal out the cards on any tarot spread, you're just taking the top card and laying it down, and that's just a sequence of cards. So if you just put them back together, then you can analyze them with elemental dignities, card counting, pairing, and lots of other ways as well. And so this whole book was written to convert from the Celtic cross spread into the opening of the key spread techniques. And we sort of go through the things, and Kath Chapman had lots of interesting experiences when we were writing that book. My publisher emailed me, asked me what I was up to these days, and I told him about it, and he said, great, send it to me. And because Catherine said, yeah, we can make a book. And I said, no, it's not going to work. And she said, yes, it will. So that's what we did. So let's get back onto the main subject this evening, which is the Universe Tarot card. In the first video, we were kind of going into the sense of duality that Crowley writes about the Universe card, in particular with the En Sof and Ein Sof Or, and the supernal triangle, and how it kind of dovetails in with the full tarot card. The letter Tau is attributed to Saturn, the outermost and slowest of the 7 sacred planets. Because of these dull, heavy qualities, the element of earth was thrust upon the symbol. Right, so letter Tau, Saturn. There's, you know, that's a Golden Dawn attribution, basically. It's pretty much standard on those things. The dull, heavy qualities. So we're not talking about Bina now, are we? Because that's a Zephyr associated with Saturn. Okay. So the thing is that as we said before, the element Earth doesn't exist in a Sefer Yetzirah. There's only 3 elements: fire, air, and water. So he goes on to say, the original 3 elements, fire, air, water, sufficed for primitive thought. Earth and spirit represent a later accretion. This is, he's referencing here the Sefer Yetzirah, which he actually mentions in the next line, basically. Because what happens is when you have 22 letters and you put in the 12 signs of the zodiac and the 7 planets, that comes to 19, which only leaves you 3 left over. And these 3 are the mother letters: air, water, and fire. There's no room for earth. And there's no room for spirit as well. One way around that is to say that all 22 letters represent spirit. And there's a kind of duality, because earth and spirit are the 2 opposite kind of ends of the pole. So spirit can be the full card, and the earth like element then is the Saturn one, Tau. Yes.
It's a bit like Dot, the lost Sephiroth.
Yeah. It's in any system you need ambiguity. It moves things along when you nail things down, but there's some bits that just don't quite fit. Like duckbill platypus, you know, is it an animal? Is it a bird? Is it all these? This is the problem with classifications. They will always break down at some point.
It makes sense, because everything changes.
Yes.
And
you know, you couldn't have poetry without ambiguity, could you? And great writings and creative writings, because it needs to work on different levels. And that's what we love ambiguity. It brings in levels that we can't have otherwise. So then he says, neither is to be found in the original 22 paths of the Sefer Yetzirah, which is what we just said. The world of Asaya, the material world, does not appear except as a pendant to the tree of life. Now, the world Asaya is the 4th level, which is kind of to do with Earth, although it isn't Earth. It's the 4th position. When we talk about pendant, you remember when we do the 3 card readings, we have the 3 cards there, and the other 4th position. It's like a pendant hanging off the bottom. And this is another way of describing this whole system, so that when we do a 3 card reading, we come up with this 4th position. That is the Earth position. That's the outcome, the manifestation, the matter at hand, as Crowley described it in the previous video. Yes.
That's Malkuth?
Yes, it's Malkuth, which is the kingdom as well.
The material world.
The material world. I'm thinking Material Geld here by Madonna. That's something different, isn't it? Okay.
Don't you have that, Paul?
What?
Like, I love watching National Geographic's The Science Channel and all that. And then they're on about black holes and dark matter and dark energy, dark stars, the dark universe, and all these things. And I'm looking for analogies. How do you call them?
Yes.
Analogies.
Yes.
You know, just you try to compare the macrocosm to the microcosm.
Yes. The biggest to the smallest. Knew it and had it. Point and infinity. All of these things.
As above, so below.
Yes. There's all these dualities. Left, right, up, down, north, south, east, west. Man, woman.
Good and bad.
Yes. Evil and everything else. In the same way, the element of spirit is attributed to the letter shin as an additional ornament. Okay. So pendants and additional ornaments. So now he's saying that there's two versions of this thing that's come down. We have the three cards. They generate the fourth position. There's actually two positions, really. I mean, in our heads, we just see them as one. And it's like the divinatory meaning and the anti-divinatory meaning. Or the thing that comes from, there's one you can logically derive from the characteristics of those three cards, using astrology and other techniques as well. And there's a thing that comes into your head and it's like, bang, bloody hell, what's that about? And that's what comes out during the reading. So there's the literal and there's the metaphorical, I guess you could say. One is the practical matter at hand, the earth, dull, heavy kind of thing. And there's this inspirational spirit thing, which represents shin. How does that sound? Yeah?
Yeah, well, yeah, the element spirits.
Spirits, yeah.
It's also, it's funny to say, it's funny how we talk about it, because now it seems like occultism and all this, it's like at a certain point in history, it just stopped evolving. And like now we're saying that Thoth is a new thing, and this element spirit is a new thing. They're not new things.
No. I mean, it's a bit like ether and spirits. I mean, they're kind of interchangeable. You have the Enochian ethers, but you also have spirits. And I think the spirits is like a personification, and the ether is the space. So you can have the spirits and the space, I guess.
And the astral.
Yeah, and oh god, yeah, no, don't get me started. Right. I only got halfway through that first sentence there. In the same way, the element of spirit is attributed to the letter shin as an additional ornament, somewhat in the same way as Keter is said to be symbolized by the topmost point of the yod of Tetragrammaton. We discussed this in the full card, didn't we? There's the yod is like a comma, if you like. It's the smallest letter, and all of the Hebrew letters are generated from yods. Basically, this is the thing. But yod is 10, which represents the tetractys as well, and it's the first letter of yod hey vav hey. But the actual point of kata of yod is the topmost point of it, not the whole thing. Remember this. So it's an interesting what he's done there, because we've been sort of talking about the lowest level, Tau, the lowest, heaviest sort of thing, and then suddenly he's taking it right up to the top again. You see. So he's constantly doing these things. He's referencing outside of the system into something else and bringing that back in, rather than just being on topic, which makes it very hard for us to concentrate.
To me, this looks like he's just given an example of the stunts Golden Dawn did to fit some things on there.
Yeah, it's well, that's a subject for another video, I think. Let's not get sidetracked. Stay on message. Yes, but you're right. It is constantly necessary to distinguish between the symbols of philosophical theory and those more elaborate symbols based upon them, which are necessary in practical work. That's almost a comment of what Bathsheba Ash is writing about in Hermeneutics. There is what Crowley wrote, there's what we think we wrote, there's what other people think he wrote, and there's what people like Bathsheba Ash can add to it, and whole deeper levels that we had no idea existed. It's pretty amazing. You're going to say something, Bart?
Well, here he just says, so we are talking about the attribution of Earth to the universe card,
Yep.
the attribution of the spirit to Shin, to the
Yep.
Aeon card,
Yep.
and we're talking about the attribution of Kether to the
Yes.
topmost point of Yod.
Yes.
And here he says, which are necessary in practical work. So I would understand that in a way he's saying here that these things have been done for practical reasons and have no real further value.
Yeah. It's a bit like, you know, for the pentagram rituals, you need earth and spirit in order for them to work. But in the system of the Hebrew letters, they don't exist in that sense. So there's you know, there is this distinction in, you know, there's a theoretical way you do stuff, and in practical terms, it's like reading the highway code. You have to study and learn that, but that's not how you drive the car. It's how you drive the car to pass your driving test. And if you drove like that normally, people would want to kill you. So, because the driving test is to demonstrate to the examiner that you know how to drive and control the car. But that's not how you drive the car, because, you know, 25, 30 miles an hour, that's going to really upset a lot of people. And it'll take forever to get anywhere. So now, this is an interesting thing. He's already bringing in theory and practice here, isn't he? And this whole sort of thing, which is an interesting distinction. So then he says, Saturn and Earth have certain qualities in common: heaviness, coldness, dryness, immobility, dullness, and the like. And then he brings out the point about Saturn. Yet Saturn appears in Bina in respect of its blackness in the Queen scale, which is the scale of observed nature. But always, as soon as the end of a process is reached, it returns automatically to the beginning. So the whole of that sentence is to say things go from the top to the bottom and then back up to the top again.
Hey, he is repeating, what was it? Where does he say that again? That the climax of the descent of matter.
Yeah, I think it says it in the full card, doesn't he, as well?
The climax
when you get to the top, you come yourself out the bottom. This is it's a dynamic process. This is why he talks about, in the previous video, we talked about the revolutions of the place of Saturn within this system and Malkuth. But that's a kind of a horizontal sort of spinning thing. This one here is talking about, which actually reminds me that it could well be talking also about the dragons that appear in the Golden Dawn system that revolves around the pole star, the Earth spinning, and all these kind of things and stuff. Sorry?
Draco, the telly.
Yes. You have the leaping dragon, there's a fire dragon, a water dragon, an earth dragon, and an air dragon, basically. So he's bringing all of these things in.
He's represented by a swastika, and that's the revolving symbol.
Well, yeah, the swastika is this thing of, it's an ancient symbol that represents the spinning motion of the Earth around the pole star, or the pole star's axis, basically. So he gives another example here after this one, because that was a long sentence, wasn't it? The next one is long as well. My God. Next sentence is a paragraph. In chemistry, it is the heaviest elements that are unable in terrestrial conditions to support the strain and stress of their internal structure. So he's talking about uranium and Pluto, where they discover the particles that come off them. And this is written pre-nuclear bomb time as well, actually. So he's bringing in all of this before the nuclear bomb was dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Consequently, they radiate particles of the most tenuous character and the highest activity, radioactivity. In an essay written in Kefalo, Sicily, on the second law of thermodynamics, which I can't remember, it was suggested that at the absolute zero of the air thermometer, an element heavier than uranium might exist, of such a nature that it was capable of reconstituting the entire series of elements. Well, yes, I mean, that's interesting because they, they have generated other elements beyond uranium-237, haven't they? So it's an interesting, this is kind of but that's an interesting thing because, from the heaviest thing, you get the lightest things coming from it. These energized particles, basically. You going to say something, Bart?
No. I am not nothing. I know nothing about thermodynamics.
No.
When I hear heavy elements,
so there's
think of black holes.
The parallel is making is that from the fall, from the air, everything is generated from the letter Aleph or the Yod. Now he's saying from the opposite spectrum, letter Tau, that is associated with Sato and the heaviest element of Earth, which is plutonium. That also generates particles, and through the fission of these particles, new elements are created. So at both ends of the scale, you have generation of new things. Very clever. So now we come on to the naught equals 2, Aleister Crowley's favorite equation. He says, so we've done physics there. And now we go on to chemistry. It says, it was a chemical interpretation of the equation naught equal 2. It becomes then reasonable to argue from analogy that since the end must beget the beginning, the symbolism will follow. Hence, blackness is also attributed to the sun, according to a long hidden tradition. That's the black sun kind of idea of things, which is another subject that we'd have to go into.
What is the black sun? What is the black sun?
Oh God, it's now a chemical thing, I think, as much as anything else. And there's certain occult groups are very heavily into the black sun kind of concept. So there it is. So he's also creating blackness as the creation of energy, because from Saturn, Bina is still in the supernal triangle. So it's the last part. From that goes on through the abyss to generate manifestation of matter and everything else. At that point. And then he says, one of the shocks for candidates in the mysteries, in quotes, was the revelation Osiris is a black god. You also have the idea of Black Isis as well, don't you, as well? And the idea of Virgin Mary as a black woman too, which comes into all of this. So he's really going on the black thing here. And so this is kind of the physics of the whole sort of thing as he saw it in 1940, whenever it was written. We don't know exactly. But it would have been before 1944 probably, because the book was published in 44. So now we're shifting south. We talked about the sun as the black sun. And then it goes back to Saturn. And he says that Saturn, therefore, is masculine. He is the old god, the god of fertility, the sun in the south, but equally the great sea, the great mother, and the letter Tau upon the tree of life, appears as an emanation from the moon of Yesod, the foundation of the tree and representative of the reproductive process and of the equilibrium between change and stability, or rather their identification. I didn't realize that sentence was so long when I started. So we have here Bina, the Great Sea. And it's also an emanation from the moon of Yesod, because the path of Malkut, of the universe, is from Yesod to Malkut. And Yesod is the foundation. That's the meaning of Yesod. And it's a reproductive process, because Yesod is the place where the genitals are. So he's been quite literal here on this whole sort of thing. and of the equilibrium between change and stability,
And
rather
the moon,
their identification.
you forgot the moon.
The moon of Yesod. Didn't I say the moon of Yesod?
I didn't think, I thought, you know, I didn't hear you say it.
Yes, an emanation from the moon of Yesod. So he's doing an awful lot of things here because he's relating Saturn at the top of the tree of life down to Yesod as an intermediate point between Marcos, because he talked about Marcos at the start, and Saturn also Keter, because that's the full card as well. So he's doing the whole range of things there.
Well, he is also doing the same old thing again, eh? About Saturn being the man and the woman and the father and the mother.
Yes.
And the change and the stability.
Yes.
And the unification of the, you know, unification of opposites.
Yes. Yes. A lot of dualities in there.
Yes.
A lot of dualities. Rather than getting lost in that one, we have another. This sentence is not too long. The influence of the path descends upon the earth, Malkut, the daughter. That was short. So yes, Malkut, the daughter, we've already talked about. It's the final letter He of Yod He Vav He. So he's also giving a path structure, if you like, through the tree of life, from Bina down through the, not probably the central pillar, I think, because that's doing something different. It's because it's bypassing the art card between Yesod and Tiproth to Keter, which is the direct route with the High Priestess. This is more of a route around the left-hand side of the Tree of Life.
So it's actually the road from the moon to Earth.
Yes. And the moon is the nearest celestial being. The moon is the moon. So then he says, here again appears the doctrine of setting the daughter upon the throne of the mother. So yes,
the one
because
who was awaiting thee.
Yes, yes. You see, in the last line we talked about in the previous video, the last line, the daughter awaits thee.
Yes.
Was it the actual one? See, it all links up. In the king's palace, his daughter awaits thee. But here now, he's talking about the daughter going back up the tree of life to Bina, because Bina is the mother. So the daughter has hair. The last hair becomes the mother, the first hair, and the whole sort of thing. In this card itself, there is constantly a glyph of the completion of the great work in its highest sense, exactly as the Artu of the full symbolizes its beginning.
Hey, I'd like to go back where he says, setting the daughter upon the throne of the mother.
Yes.
Because then in my head, I hear Earth is the throne of spirit.
Yes. Yes, what the princesses are, isn't it? They're the thrones of spirits, of the aces. So this is kind of, so you'd have to bring in the aces as well in the princess. Well, he does in a way, because he talks about the fall here. So, you know, so there is a method in our madness of starting with the verse of the full card in our analysis of the universe card. So there is everything. This is why we start with the fall and then the universe, rather than going through all the other cards. Did you have a point, Bart?
There is no such thing as madness when talking about the Fool card.
No, there isn't. Then he says, the fall is the negative issuing into manifestation. The universe is that manifestation. Its purpose accomplished, ready to return, which is what we've talked about. From the fall with the negative vowel, he's talking about the end, the Ensof, the Ensof fall, and then it manifests through all of this. And then the universe is that manifestation, and then it returns back to the full. So he has how many different ways of talking about manifestation, descent, and then ascent again.
So
in the whole
actually, we
process.
could say that our whole universe is a glitch.
Yes.
And it's just a description. They describe a glitch, and at the end of the description, everything's back as it should be.
Yes. It's a bit like, enlightenment. You find out where you were when you started, basically. It's the way it works. Otherwise, how would you know? So the 20 cards that lie between these two exhibit the great work and its agents in various stages. There's a chapter in the beginning of the Book of Thoth at Tarot as Living Beings.
Yes.
I think this is probably what he's talking about here. So the purpose of these tarot as living beings, the cards as living beings, as energies, is the purpose of the tarot, of a tarot reading is fulfillment of the great work, even though they might want to know about girlfriends and boyfriends and stuff like that.
And
we have higher purposes.
And the universe.
Yes. So the matter at hand, what is the matter at hand? The matter at hand is the great work. The Fool springs it into action, and the universe is it's why Crowley calls it the matter at hand. It's the thing that you go from the Fool to the universe. So you could do, if you wanted to, you could go through the Fool, the Magus, the High Priestess, the Empress, and the Emperor, or you could sort of jump straight from where the Fool is to where the universe card is, and then back from the universe card to the Fool in the spread of cards, if they were there. The Fool's journey, we've done it.
Well, yes and no, because just as the Fool is just as connected to the universe cards as it is to adjustment, to Lamed.
That's something different we're going on to.
Yeah, I know, but it's still the same guy. He's got 2 girlfriends.
That's not allowed.
But it is, come on, Aleph and Lamed. Normally, if you would connect Aleph to
that's the book of the law, isn't it? That's why he talks about equilibrium between change and stability at the beginning of this paragraph, you see. I looked at and thought, do we talk about the justice card, adjustment card there, or maybe not? Because it interrupts the flow of the whole sort of thing.
I know. But I have to say, I have missed her since talking about the Fool so much. She is, for me, they're like a threesome. I'm sorry, Paul. I didn't.
Well, yes. So then he says, Bart's been missing her. And then he says, the image of the universe in this sense is accordingly that of a maiden, the final letter of Tetragrammaton. So she is, and also you see that in the Princess of Discs card. There's a summum bonum, and also the whole of the great work as well that's involved in all of this. I think the Prince of Wands is involved in the great work as well, but that of course represents Crowley himself, doesn't it? So you get into insurance
and the star card is also the letter Hey. The star card.
Yes. So now we actually get on to the description of the card. Towards the end of video 2, we get onto it. In the present card, she is represented as a dancing figure. In her hand, she manipulates the radiant spiral force. How many times is he talked about God is a spiral force, according to Zoroaster? About 3 or 4, 5 times in the Book of Thoth. And now this spiral force, where it just says God is a spiral force, now she is manipulating it, the active and passive, each possessing its dual polarity. So we're getting back into polarities again. You're not going to escape this, I'm sorry. Her dancing partner is shown as Heru Raha of R219, which of course is the Sun card. And he referenced the Sun card as the Black Sun a few sentences earlier, didn't he? So is this, Heru-Raha is a dual god, and that's why you have the twins, because this basically the end of, in Gemini, it's the longest day of the year appears on the 21st of June, which is we can either see that as Gemini or Cancer, basically. Depends on how you want to look at it. So this is Heru-Raha of R29, which is why you have the dancing children on the mound of grass. And he has a quote here from Librel. He says, "The sun, strength, and sight, light. These are for the servants of the star and the snake." Better ask Bathsheba Ash about that one, hadn't we? So sun is the sun, strength is the last card, and sight, light. Well, we have sun, strength, and sight. There's 3 S's there, which is kind of shin, and then you have or, which is light, haven't you?
Well, but the way he puts it is the sun, strength and sight, and then light. So strength and sight are together, actually.
Sight, light. It's well, to see you need illumination, don't you? Without illumination, it's very hard to see things.
Now, if you look at the universe cards, so the sun, then you can see the sun. Eh? The sun is the eye.
Yes. You also have the snake in there. So there's, because, you know, the snake is to do with the death card as well, isn't it?
Yes. And if you look carefully, the most fascinating thing in that whole thing is that hook coming out of the eye,
yeah,
which it looks exactly like a fish hook, you would think, Saudi. So that's the emperor then.
So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 at least tarot cards in there. The sun card, the last card, light, sight.
And
that's it. Oh, the eye. Sight and light is the eye. That's the devil card.
Yeah, yes, Ain.
Fine, yes. The sun, the last card, the devil card, the star card, and the death card.
And what would that hook be then? The hook coming out of now. And have you noticed the snake has two loops, eh? Yeah. And one loop is bright with the sunlight, and the other loop is very dark, like a dark hole.
Right.
The inside of the loops of the snake that she's manipulating with her hands.
Right. Well, that's what he says. Is she manipulates the radiant spiral force.
Yes.
And you can see the spiral force, you can see as a snake, because snakes coil, and then you're talking about Kundalini yes. as well, aren't you? And all exactly. of these things. So then he says, this final form of the image of the magical formula of the god combines and transforms so many symbols that description is difficult and would be nugatory. The proper method of study of this card, indeed of all, but of this especially, is long continued meditation. So, you know, if you don't understand the symbols and what's in the universe card, that's all fine and dandy, because he's not expecting you to. You can interpret.
It makes you think.
Yeah, it does make you think. It does make you think. Then he says, the universe, so states the theme, is the celebration of the great work accomplished, which you've already said. And then he says, this is more the description of the card. In the corners of the card are the 4 cherubim showing the established universe. And about her, the maiden, is an ellipse composed of 72 circles for the quinaries of the zodiac, the Shem Hamfresh. So these are the 72 names of God that are in the Shem Hamfresh. And that ellipse parallels the oval shape that we see around the sun card, where it has all of the symbols of the signs of the zodiac as well. You see. So he's placing the the 72 angels of the Shemhamfresh in this position. But of course, because it's the universe card, you can take it right to the top, can't you?
I think, now, call me, I don't know, this is my idea. I've already been staring and studying that circle with the 72 cases there, because if you look at the stars, I'm sure there's something, there must be, because if you look at, for example, when the snake passes over that ring, certain stars are on top of the snake. And I don't know, it just doesn't seem so random as you would think at first sight. I can't help it.
That's another video. We're trying to get through this one, Bart. Okay? There's 2 more paragraphs here. We'll skate over the next one fairly quickly. He says, in the center, a wheel of light initiates the form of the tree of life, showing the 10 principal bodies of the solar system. But this tree is not visible except to those of holy, pure heart.
That's an interesting one.
So if you can't see it, you're not pure enough.
But it's the Mobius ring behind him. Have you ever seen a Mobius ring?
Yeah, that's not a Mobius ring. That's something different.
I have an image. I've already posted a photo of it.
Yeah, but it's not. It's not an actual Mobius. Mobius doesn't look like that. It's something different.
In the back, I will show you a picture of a Mobius.
Yeah, but it doesn't look like
exactly like that.
It's something different he's doing there. It's not just a Mobius thing. So basically, so then he has the. So he's listing now. So he's saying that the universe generates the tree of life, rather than the consequence of, which is kind of an interesting concept anyway. So he has, number 1 is the prime and mobile, represented by Pluto. The sphere of the zodiac, or fixed stars, represented by Neptune. Number 3 is Saturn and the abyss. This is represented by Herschel.
Represented by Herschel.
Or Uranus, yeah.
Uranus.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Then we have 4 is Jupiter, 5 is Mars, 6 the Sun, 7 Venus, 8 Mercury, 9 the Moon, and 10 the Earth, in brackets, the 4 elements. Okay, so this is new and old as far as the 10 Sephirot are concerned.
It is interesting that he mentions Pluto, Neptune, and Uranus here.
Yeah, because he says the 10 principal bodies of the solar system, which of course you can't do now because Pluto is not a planet. Anyway.
In magic, it is.
Well, that's all right. We can do everything with magic.
That's why it's magic.
All these symbols swim and dance in a complex but continuous ambience of loops and whirls. The Mobius strip. Okay, so there's no beginning and no end in the Mobius strip. It's technically it hasn't 2 surfaces. It only has 1 surface, as I'm sure you learned at school, secondary school at some point. I remember doing that. The general color of the traditional card is subfusc. It represents the confusion and darkness of the material world. Well, the confusion and darkness is chaos, and that's tohu bohu, isn't it, in the Bible? And that's kind of associated more with the top of the tree than anywhere else.
What is subfusc?
Good question. Next one. But the new Aeon has brought fullness of light in the Minutum Mundum. Earth is no longer black or of mixed colors, but is pure, bright green. So this is the new Aeon he's talking about, which also is represented by the star card, isn't it, as well? I seem to remember. The Minutum Mundum is a cross of 4 colors in Malkuth. And then he says, similarly, the indigo Saturn is derived from the blue velvet of the midnight sky, and the maiden of the dance represents the issue from this, yet through this, to the eternal. And finally it says, this card is today as bright and glowing as any in the pack. That last sentence is interesting because, you know, there's the 7 of discs is the darkest card, isn't it? And there's a 9 of swords they're pretty grim and miserable, aren't they? So I'm not quite sure what he's saying. I mean, in comparison to the full card, which is a lot of golden energy and brightness and things, you know, the universe card, I mean, you could have kind of done a sort of black and white, grey subtones for that card, couldn't he? Which we were technically right. But he's seeing this whole thing as a rebirth and regeneration as well, because that's what we have for the full card. We got there.
What I also like is the design of the universe cards. If you hold the universe card next to the Tarot of Marseille, Le Monde, you see the similarities. It's still the same card. It's just restyled.
Yeah, but it's, you know, but you wouldn't find, by definition, the Tarot of Marseille wouldn't have Neptune, Uranus, or Pluto.
No. But you have to remember, it is a tarot game.
Yeah. Well, you build up on things. You know, he's bringing the doctrine that that was probably omitted, because a lot of these guys, you know, they created these decks and they omitted the esoteric side of things out of it. But I doubt they could have gone into things in such complexity anyway. So there we are. Hope you enjoyed this video. Give some likes. Check out Bathsheba Ash's website. We'll leave some links down below. If you want to buy my books signed, sealed, and delivered by yours faithfully, truly, contact me. And we hope to see you on our Facebook groups.
Or on our next video next week.
Yes. See you then.